I just saw a video with Alex Ramosi recently, reminded people, say, look, if you're creating a product, the goal is not now to go spend another 100 hours to create another product. The goal is to spend at least another 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 hours promoting the one thing you just made and reaching more people. At the end of the day, if you're doing good work, people will pay you more money when you help them solve bigger problems and you make a bigger impact on their lives. Ultimately, you're looking for their pain point. Most people want more money, more time, more freedom, more creativity. They want to do work that they love and stop doing work that they hate. It's not about proving you're smarter than me. It's about proving that you can do something that I don't want to deal with or that I'm good at.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself a favor and give us a follow. I would hate for you to have FOMO. We're bringing on some fire guests this year, and I wouldn't want you to miss the streak that we have going on. Without further ado, let's get right into this one. Wade, for anyone who hasn't got the opportunity to get to meet you yet, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. My name is Wade Galt, and I help entrepreneurs and professionals create more impact with their work and more income in less time, doing the work they do best, sort of that work that's their gift, so they can better enjoy their family, their friends, their freedom, and their life outside work.
Amazing, man. And I love how quick and simple you made it. And Wade, let's dive deeper into your walk to wealth. For anyone that didn't catch you at the summit, let's dive deeper into where your journey began. Take us back to little Wade. What was it like growing up in your household?
Sure. So dad's an entrepreneur. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, a thinker, a reader, somebody who was always reading psychology, spirituality, had me thinking in that way. I was an athlete and I always wanted to do things my way. So I kind of enjoyed team sports, but didn't enjoy a lot of the coaching of the people that maybe weren't as on top of things. So I eventually found a sport that I enjoyed that was more my own world, beach volleyball, where I kind of just picked it up and learned it, explored it by myself. That's kind of how I did entrepreneurship after college. When I got a degree, worked for a really solid company for about 7 years, then wanted to do my own things and really just wanted to make sure I was making enough money to pay the bills and just playing. I've been blessed to be an entrepreneur for over 20 plus years. And I can't always tell you that everything worked out because I was so smart or this or that. Sometimes you do enough stuff and some things work and you listen enough and you get your butt handed to you a few times. But over the years, I've been blessed to work with a lot of awesome people. And that's been the main theme for me, is connecting with awesome people and then that helping me grow my business.
Yeah, and it's crazy how small of a world it is. I was on one guy's podcast, I think it's from the UK, Roberto, or from the Tailoring Talk podcast. I hopped on his podcast like a month ago, and he was like, Wade, you know Wade? I was like, yeah, I know Wade. He's helping on my podcast. He's talking on my summit. Of course I know Wade. And he was like, Wade was like, I think you were his coach or his mentor, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
He did some coaching in my program about 4 or 5 months ago, and now we just keep in touch. Bobby is awesome. Roberto, he's just a brilliant man. He's so good at what he does. So yeah, he's an awesome dude.
Yeah, I was just like, man, this entrepreneurship space is like super tiny, and it's something that I'm glad, because there's not a lot of entrepreneurs. It's only like 1 to 2% of the population. So it's like you get to know a lot of people, and almost it's like we're all like at least like second or thirdly connected to someone. We all kind of know each other. It's like one big entrepreneur family, at least those of us that are in it for the right reasons. So wait, let me ask you, right? So you grew up, dad was an entrepreneur, mother was more a traditional stay-at-home mom. At what point, because I know you had quite the journey, at what point did you start to realize that the entrepreneurial path was something that you were called to be on and you decided to make the jump? And what was it like around that time period in your life?
Sure. So dad is an insurance agency owner. So he had been an entrepreneur for as long as I remember. So he had always told me about that business model, which I grew up in, knew very well, and thought I might do that. But I'd been in it enough that I wanted to try some different things. I actually thought I was going to be a teacher. I had a teacher who really inspired me with some of the literature, like Henry David Thoreau, Walden, similar kind of stuff of like enjoying life and not taking life too seriously. And so I was doing the corporate thing, and I was going to eventually perhaps go to get my own insurance agency or go that path. And a few different things. In Florida, Hurricane Andrew hit, which made things a little tougher. But then in addition to that, I just really wanted to teach and coach people. And so I was working on my master's degree in psychology. So I didn't necessarily know I was going to be an entrepreneur. I knew I was going to go into the psychology field, or that's what I thought. And I figured I was going to have time to kind of reset. In other words, kind of work my way back up from the bottom financially. But by the time I was finished my master's, I had met the woman who is now my wife. And I figured, okay, I don't have time to make, to go to the bottom financially and work my way up because, I want to marry this woman and we might have kids. So I started just thinking, okay, well, what can I do? And so I'd worked in the insurance field. I started doing some coaching and consulting. And my focus was lifestyle. Like, okay, how can I make sure I enjoy life and still have time? And my wife happens to be from Peru. I was raised, though I was born in Canada, I was raised in the United States. So we would go back and forth to Peru for 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time, eventually even 2 years at a time. And I knew that was really important because my parents are from the islands. And I watched at times my parents miss their culture when we were in the US. So much of this was just the lifestyle led me to say, okay, whatever it is that I can do that's honest and ethical and helps people and makes money, for me to have the lifestyle to be able to be, they didn't use the words location independent at the time. So I said, I want to be ageographical, whatever the hell that meant. It was like, yeah, I want to be wherever I want to be. And I was doing a lot of growth workshops in San Diego and I'm living in Florida and I'm traveling. Like, I want to live wherever I want. And so really just the lifestyle is what pushed me in that direction. And I'm fortunate that I had built some good connections. The company I worked with at first was actually who I started doing business with a lot of their associates after. So I didn't just, a lot of people think you can just land as an entrepreneur in the middle of nowhere and just start from scratch. And maybe you can. In my case, I networked and connected with the people who I'd worked with in the workforce and then started building my business from there. But it was always lifestyle, always to be able to enjoy life. And because I watched my dad provide that, and I wanted to be able to do the same.
Yeah, that's amazing, brother. It's one of those things where you can get so caught up in this entrepreneurship game of like work, grind. And you forget a lot of the times the reason why you even started to begin with. It's to get your time back, to get the freedom back, to get the life that you wanted. And a lot of times, especially as a solopreneurs, it's like this is a lot of the times like our babies. And it's like we spend so much time, we want to put all our time into it and more time sometimes than we should put into it. And over the course of a long period of time, that doesn't usually lead to anything healthy. So let me ask you, right? So this 3-day weekend entrepreneur, that brand that you created, at what point in time did you start figuring that out? When did that start piecing together?
Sure. So let's see. Okay. So I spent, after graduating college, I spent 7 years as an employee in a corporation, started my own business. It took me about another 15 years before I could consistently have a 4-day work week, 3-day weekend lifestyle. And for me, consistent, it was like 85% of the time or more. Sometimes I'd have to work on the weekends. Sometimes I would just choose to because there'd be a cool seminar to go to or whatnot. But for me, a lot of it was just continuing to keep expenses simple. And probably the biggest lesson that took me a long time to learn was, and this is not a truism, so it might not be true for everyone, but it was true for me, was that the things that I made a lot of money at consistently were not the most exciting things. And the things I was most excited about didn't necessarily make me money. And on one level, it's not to say that I did boring stuff, but it takes you a while, I think in most people's cases, to get to a point where you're worth enough for people to want to say, yeah, I'd like to pay you. And very often by the time you reach that level of mastery, you're like, oh, well, there's this other cool thing over here. I want to start that new thing. It's like, yeah, but hold on, but that's a new thing now. And so people may not want to pay you as much. So for example, I have a brand called the Automatic Insurance Agency. And I was helping clients do this with their businesses probably about, 5 to 7 years before I really mastered it for myself. And a lot of the times it felt easy because my clients had a little bit of a steadier income than I did, had a business model insurance, which has been around for literally over a century. But so much of my focus was helping them do that. But I also knew like 6 other parts of their business. So even to today, the business that I've been in for over 3 decades, the insurance agency business, I can almost add a 0 to what I can charge in my 3-day weekend entrepreneur business, because if I charge somebody, because I am worth that much more. I know their business model more. So in their model, for the insurance agency owner, I'm a combination of a consultant and a coach. Whereas in the 3-day weekend entrepreneur, I'm definitely a really solid coach at helping people create the lifestyle they want, but I might not know their particular business model. So I'm coaching them, I'm asking questions, I'm pulling their best stuff from them. But in the insurance model, I also know if they're not sure what the answer is, I'm like, dude, I know the answer. And so from that perspective, again, that understanding that the things that make me the most consistent, steady money, that provide the lifestyle and the freedom I want, might not always be the shiny squirrel objects, but for me, I had to decide between kind of three things. I realized I was thinking, okay, well, I want to decide between the fun work and the boring work. And it was like, no. I want to decide between the consistent work that provides my income. Second is the work that's maybe shiny object work. Maybe it ends up being a hobby. Maybe it makes me money. But then the third thing was my free time. And I'm like, so actually I'd rather be doing my free time the most. So if I have to trade a little bit of time doing work that's not so exciting, but allows me to do my most important thing, which is my really cool lifestyle, I'm willing to make that trade-off. And so some people have figured out how to do what they love and make truckloads of money and have their lifestyle. God bless them. I've not figured out how to fully do that yet, but my life's not too bad.
Yeah. And man, it's one of those things where, as I mentioned earlier, right? It's like that time is so important. It's something that we'll never get back. And let me ask you, because when it comes to doing the mundane tasks, a lot of the people, like the big successful entrepreneur, influencer guys, a lot of them, these guys all say the same thing. It's like the wealth, the riches, whatever. It's in the boring daily tasks done consistently over a long enough period of time, right? And so it's like, how do we get okay? And of course, we can think towards the future, but most people don't have the mindset where pleasure motivates them, right? Most people move away from pain. So they can't really think about that future vision, because right now it's like, man, this sucks. So it's like, how does one start shifting that mindset? How does one start begin rewiring that mindset so that they could be comfortable, they could be okay in the kind of like of the day-to-day entrepreneur tasks that, as you said, do generate the most business?
Sure. So, and it's like anything else. There's different levels of your business. So eventually, if you generate enough money consistently, you can start outsourcing more stuff, which is a best practice, and giving it to people who are better at it than you. And you can avoid some of that stuff, but fundamentals by their nature are unchanging. They're true. So, when a kid wants to learn basketball and they say, okay, I want to learn from Michael Jordan, you'd say, okay, well, how well do you dribble? I don't really dribble well. I don't really shoot well. Dude, you're not ready to learn from Michael Jordan. I mean, he can teach you, but you need to get your fundamentals first. And the fundamentals are the things that usually don't change. So the social media platform will change. The latest, greatest source of leads of business will change. Email wasn't here 40 years ago, let's say, at least in mass, or even 30 years ago. But overall, connecting with people, relationships, doing people right, asking people what's most important to them, learning to serve, those are true things that even, as we raise our children, my wife and I, and we're looking at, what do we tell our kids is true that's going to be true in their job market? Well, the same things that one of the gentlemen, Dan Sullivan, who owns a company called The Strategic Coach, says: creativity, relationships. Those are the things that AI still can't do. And they can duplicate really well. They can try, but at the end of the day, creativity and relationships, those are things that are unique to human beings. And I'm sure some of the AI is going to get ridiculously, but it's still, awesome, but it's still assembling stuff. And ultimately, the people who give up on their creativity, who say, okay, I'm going to let the AI stuff write my high school essays and my college essays or whatever, they're going to miss out on that creativity. The people who are, I'm just going to stay in my room and play my video games only. I don't think the video games are bad, but if I'm only going to do that, well, then you're going to miss out on the relationships. Those are the people that eventually are going to have the hardest time adjusting to life. So maybe that, if you talk about, being pain motivated in some ways, the anticipation of the pain that's coming if you're not able to adjust. But overall, I think a lot of people, I'll speak for me, I like creating. So I feel good when I'm creating, and I assume that I am making an impact on people's lives. But I just saw a video with Alex Ramosi recently, reminded people to say, look, if you're creating a product, and let's say you spend, 100 hours creating the product, and you make a few sales. He says the goal is not now to go spend another 100 hours to create another product. The goal is to spend, he's not using these numbers, he said, is to spend at least another 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 hours promoting the one thing you just made and reaching more people. And yes, you'll impact more people and you'll change more lives. And it might not be as exciting to you as that moment of creation that feels so good. But if you're really honest with yourself, and if you are saying, I'm committed to transformation, people will pay for transformation. And as much as people say, well, money is this and money baggage and all these different things, it's like at the end of the day, if you're doing good work, people will pay you more money when you help them solve bigger problems and you make a bigger impact on their lives. And so if you're not getting paid somewhere, you're not connecting, your story's not being told well enough, you're not reaching enough people. And this is not said as me like saying, you people, I do this all the time. I can be so much better with my email game. Not that I need to get there. But in the end of the day, the person that's making a 0 or 2 zeros more than me, they were willing to go through those boring things that when I was younger, I wasn't willing to go through. And so the cost of that is, well, okay, they're getting business that I could have gotten. And so if you're sitting there saying, well, gosh, this dude or this gal, they're not even close to as good as I am. You might be right that on camera or as a coach or as a teacher or so a TikToker, that they're not as good as you. But I promise you that somewhere they're way better than you. And you're not seeing it. It's kind of like Charles Barkley. I love when people talk about, well, this team is so much better than their record. He's like, no, they're not. They're exactly as good as their record. That's why it's the record. They might look like they're going to be better. They might seem like they should be